normally this series would have gone off just as, we kind of expect the Sox to beat the Twins right now, even though the Twins were surging a little bit coming into this series, but they have not played well this year. I didn't think when we did our preseason, I had them finishing third in the division. They're going to finish somewhere between 3 and 5 in the division, especially after their performance this week. But the series became more interesting for what should have been a pretty it's always the Twins. I hate the fucking Twins. I hate the Twins more than any team in the AL Central. And so
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, no matter how we beat them, it's wonderful. The game one, we beat them with a bunch of singles, and it just gave me great joy because I'm sure Smitty can attest to this. If you have lived in the AL Central your entire life, the Ozzy referred to them as gnats, and that's exactly what they were when they were winning. Piranhas, yeah, piranhas. Thank you, gnats. I prefer them as gnats, but they would bloop single you to death, and suddenly you're down 4 runs and you barely let up a hard hit. And basically, the Sox did that to the Twins in game one, which included Gavin Sheets making his MLB debut with a single, a double, and a RBI driven in on his hardest hit ball, but it went off the glove of the pitcher, who deflected it to the shortstop, which ended up being an out. So Gavin Sheets had a nice debut and has had a nice arrival to the White Sox, but I'll get into that momentarily because during that game, Josh Donaldson, who is a borderline pro wrestler, in the first inning hit a first pitch fastball off of Giolito, and it was a line drive shot. It wasn't like an epic 450, 500 foot shot. It cleared the wall in left center on a line drive, got to the first row. As he crossed the plate, he clapped his hands and said, no sticky stuff, no sticky stuff. He didn't look at Giolito. He didn't look at the White Sox. He looked at his bench. Whatever. You could pick it up on the mic. This led to questions after the game to Giolito, who didn't even see it till after the game, to where he referred to Donaldson as a fucking pest and said he was classless for his actions, and he should just talk to him face to face if he has a problem with him. Donaldson crossing the plate and saying that may or may not have been a problem with Giolito at the time. It could have just been a general statement to pitching, and I have numbers pulled up that we can get into, but spin rate is down. It's down on average by a significance that would say that most pitchers were using sticky stuff, because to drop by 100 average, you have to be losing per pitcher like 200 and above. So that's a big drop off. What hasn't dropped off in this whole thing is strikeouts have remained about the same, but it's a very small sample size right now. Walks have remained about the same, and hit by a pitch, it's all within 100th and tenths of each other. So that being said, we have a ways to go to see the ramifications of this enforcement. The other thing is the bad timing of this enforcement. And the reason I'm bringing all this up is because I'm going to get into the comments that Josh started spewing on his retort. Normally in June and July, hitters' numbers go up. The weather's warmer in all ballparks. The ball carries better. It's historically a month where hitting catches up to pitching, and then it all kind of levels out for the season.
Yeah, and we've seen batting averages climb, every year, but we're seeing it this year too, where a month ago, we were talking about historic lows where it was, 238, I think was the league batting average. Now it's like up to 246, I think. So yeah, that was happening before the sticky substances were banned or curtailed.
Right. So a lot of this stuff really isn't out of the norm, and it would have, it would have been interesting if this, if, and we talked about this. Baseball should have just opened up with this at the start of the season, all of these rules, and then we probably would have really seen the ramifications of it. It's probably not even gonna really be until next year unless you see pitchers completely fall off. But the thing is, there are good pitchers in baseball, and I feel Lucas Giolito has become a good pitcher in baseball. And whether or not he was using sticky stuff, it really hasn't affected him. His ERA has basically remained the same. Pre-sticky stuff enforcement, he was as high as 5.79. He's at 3.84 right now, and has in between the soft enforcement, the hard enforcement, his ERA has gone up and down 0.04. So like we're not
talking about like 2 starts though, aren't we?
No, we're talking about 3. We're talking about 4 start. We're talking about 3 starts.
They didn't start enforcing it till last week. So how would he have?
No, we're talking about they measured in 3 sections. Nothing, soft, which is when Garlagos got called out by Joe West.
Oh, okay.
There was soft enforcement segment, and then there's this final segment.
I'm going to blow this up right now because all Giolito had to say is, "Fuck you." He never denied that he used sticky stuff. I think everyone's using sticky stuff. I think he's included. I don't see why, and I think there's no reason to vilify him necessarily because I think everyone was doing it. But I think it's pretty clear Giolito was using the stuff because the spin rate has dropped. So. I mean, you can use some numbers to try to defend to try to prove that he's not. But all you can say is he's never used it, and I would start to believe him, but he never denied it. So,
but do we know that his spin rate has dropped other than what Josh Donaldson said? Because I tried to find that, it's nowhere to be found.
I can pull it up after the show. You can find it. If
you look at his numbers of movement on the ball, they haven't changed at all.
Well, the spin rates have dropped. I mean, let's just. I mean, because Giolito didn't deny that, I think we can safely say that they have. And
we
go round and round on that, but just because you couldn't find the numbers.
No, and I agree with you too. Like he probably was because everyone was. So, but anyway, so Josh Donaldson apparently did confront him in the parking lot.
Is this where we're getting to asshole of the week?
Yeah, and I'm gonna get to the part that I think is asshole-ish.
Okay.
One, I think it's a little strange that he waited for him in the parking lot to confront him in almost a high schoolish way.
Oh, this is very high school. Yes.
Although Giolito did invite him to confront him face to face, I would have thought maybe on the field before the game or something.
No, you'd get kicked out for that.
No, just going to talk to one another about something. There's been players who've had a scuff the night before that meet on the field before the game, and then they talk and everything's cool and whatever. But Donaldson waits for him to come to his car and confronts him about it, to where his recounting of the tale is Giolito didn't have much to say. Giolito took the high road, didn't even bother to address it.
Or he had nothing to say because he's using sticky stuff. So I mean,
so then Donaldson goes on to talk about how his spin rates dropped by 200, and things I didn't care. He said, and I agree with him. Giolito called him a fucking pest. He said he took that as a compliment. I would too, being on the opposing team. That is a compliment. So, he took offense to him calling him classless. So whatever, but he has a resume that I have that I did not see a lot of Josh Donaldson until he got to Minnesota. And there are 2 instances in Sox games where he cost his team the game. One is the famous incident last year where he was at wit's end it was terrible home plate umpiring, but he came across the plate and kicked dirt on the plate after a home run and got ejected from the game. He was coming up to bat in the bottom of the 9th with a runner on base, down 1 run, and his replacements I think he struck out, but he may have just popped out. Game over. You kind of you put your team in a bad situation there. And then the other one was the most recent moment this year where someone roped a double, or what it would be a would-be double, and he was loafing around the bases. The runner got caught at second, and he didn't score. He didn't score in that game. That led to a Minnesota loss because he was loafing around the bases instead of running hard. I mean, the guy is he's kind of a freaking idiot. But
he's a good hitter, though.
He's an okay hitter. He's maybe going to hit 300 home runs lifetime.
850 OPS is not bad.
Maybe 300 lifetime, and most of that OPS stuff was done in like a 2-year time span. Okay. So, I mean, he has 13 home runs right now. I mean, whatever. Here's the thing, though, that I think makes him like kind of a major asshole is he decides to, apparently the Twins watch the White Sox post game in the locker room, which is bizarre to me, but they do. And he decides he's going to attack Ozzie Guillen for Ozzie, if you watch it, Ozzie's joking around. He's saying, oh, if I'm Lucas Giolito, he's not even pitching against the Twins next week, by the way, because he's pitching against the Tigers in the last game of the series. But he's like, oh, I'd like to say the ball slipped, and I didn't have sticky stuff, so I accidentally hit you. It's Ozzie just screwing around, right?
Yep.
Josh decides to go on a tirade saying how Ozzie Guillen's OPS, my worst OPS is 150 points higher than his lifetime OPS, and just like calling Ozzie Guillen out. And I was just like, dude, you're just a freaking asshole. Like, I mean,
Ozzie was happy to defend himself with his 3 world championship rings, and he had freely admitted he was a bad hitter and all that.
Yeah, he always has admitted he was a bad hitter.
But he did have to flash his 3 World Series rings,
and then hold up his "so sorry" sign in the post game.
Yeah,
so sorry.
I just thought all of it was such immature, kind of insecure, macho posturing on everyone's part. I think you can definitely single out Josh Donaldson as asshole of the week, since he is the instigator of all of this. But I thought everyone looked like fools on this. I mean, first of all, Giolito, he didn't have to answer the reporter's question about the reporter asked him in that Zoom session, like, what did you think of Josh Donaldson at his actions at home plate? And he could just say, I don't know what you're talking about. And that would have been the end of it. Instead, he called him a fucking pest and classless, and look at the scoreboard. We've got the W and you're in last place. So if he just didn't say anything, that would have been the high road, and it would never become an issue. But whatever, I think it basically admitted guilt by responding that way, and not denying it or just moving on. But whatever, I'm certainly not making Giolito asshole of the week. I'll stick by your Josh Donaldson. But Ozzie Guillen getting involved, Ozzie doesn't have to defend himself at all, but he felt like he needed to flash the rings. The funny part of that was Frank Thomas was also on that post game, and involved in it, and he was definitely taking the high road. He's like, I think he didn't really come out and say that Giolito was probably using sticky stuff, but he did say Giolito should have just ignored the question. Just, I don't know what you're talking about. And I thought that was the best advice anyone had, until I realized he was kind of on Josh Donaldson's side, because they're both Auburn Tigers. They both went to Auburn. So I think Frank was seeing a little war eagle bias when he was talking about Josh Donaldson. I certainly knew Frank Thomas was from Auburn, but I didn't realize Josh Donaldson had played there. So I think there was some defense there. But then, even Frank had to get into the macho posturing, comparing dick sizes. Or he's like, well, I'm in the Hall of Fame. I don't have to talk about this at all. I'm in Cooper now. Okay, Frank. So it was just all silly. Like, at the end of the day,
you're right. You summed it up. It's all silly. It's all ridiculous. And one of the reasons I want to talk about is because a question that happened on Waddle and Sylvie, because it broke that afternoon on their show, because the Cubs were on The Score that afternoon in the 15-7 debacle. They asked the question, and I don't know if you were listening at all, but like, should the White Sox hit Josh Donaldson? And I just started laughing. Why would you hit Josh Donaldson over that? It's Lucas talking about, calling him that. Donaldson has the right to respond. There's no reason to risk injuring Donaldson and then getting our players injured, because we already saw Minnesota throw at us once this year in the Mercedes incident. So Rocco Baldelli's obviously
endorsed by your manager.
Obviously, he wasn't sure if he was thrown at him. Maybe he wasn't using sticky stuff that night. He lost control, right? Yeah. So I was shocked. I don't know. I really wasn't shocked. I just found it laughable because there were these meathead Sox fans that called up and said, you should totally drill Donaldson tonight. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He's getting one right in the rear. And Sylvie kept saying, like, what is so weird about the game of baseball? And I think Michael Wilburn was on and said it too. He's like, like if you're trash talking basketball, it's kind of like trash talking basketball is like a thing, right? And then you go out and you beat each other on the court, and it's all done on the court. And I sent a tweet into Waddle and Sylvie and said, they should not hit Donaldson. What they should do is go out and kick the shit out of the Twins as an answer to back up Giolito, and just shut the Twins up and bury them in the division. And that's exactly what the Sox did that night, to the tune of 6 home runs after going 23 runs in a row without hitting a home run. Their last 23 runs have been scored by hits.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is crazy when you think about
that team in that ballpark.